up in the US and saying, we've got a scaled customer base. So that's an arbitrage play, okay? So there are lots of areas of opportunity. I think, education is huge, online education, career preparation, and so on and so forth, human capital development, recruiting, talent development, logistics services, and logistics marketplaces, financial services, healthcare, mobile. Every business now requires mobile apps. So the areas of opportunity are limitless. This is a really exciting time to be an entrepreneur. And I hope that I've shown you some of the building blocks and elements that you need to think about. But what you need to do is to go think ahead to not kind of the services startup, but the product startup. And the product startup is going to take a mindset of thinking about products. It is going to require an ecosystem, as I was saying before, and it requires marketing capabilities because products need to be marketed. Services are sold through relationships. Products need to be branded and marketed. So I do believe we can do this. Instead of just having people, sitting at call centers and desks, India inside, I want to see India outside. I want to see India branded. Not made in India, but India as a brand. And that, I think, is the future. So thank you very much for listening. I'll be happy to take some questions.
Can you elaborate on smart money? Well, here's the deal, that when you are raising money for your company, ideally, but let me define smart money. Smart money is an investor who has some expertise or connections or strategic advice that can be helpful to you. Okay? So let's say you go to a venture firm. One of the things you should be evaluating is
what does that venture firm's portfolio look like? How much experience do they have? What are their exits look like? What are the domains that they're really good at? So for example, if there's a venture, so let's say you're doing something in the wireless space and you find that that VC has 10 wireless companies in their portfolio. Their general partners came out of the wireless business, have several hundred years of wireless experience. That's the one I would bet on. Not that another VC that does phenomenal work in healthcare is not smart money. They're just not smart money for you. So that's the idea. Relevance to your context and the ability to contribute more than the money. Money is a commodity. Smart money is not.
So Professor Sawhney, you talked about the challenges of the ecosystem. I'd like to ask you about influencing a little beyond the ecosystem. I think in India, apart from the ecosystem, there is a general intolerance of risk, of failure. Yeah, it is difficult. I mean, you've heard people say that service officers don't get bribes anymore. Young entrepreneurs will find it equally difficult, if not more so. And I've seen some of those situations. And there is, the World Bank has already said we're not a great place to do business. But, tucked among those ratings, we're the worst place to close a company. And I'm sure you've heard, entrepreneurs succeed on their third attempt, not on their first or second. And that's the cliche. What can people like us, what can Woxsen do to change those parts of the surrounding environment, even beyond the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question. This is really a cultural change, right? And again, I have to take the example of Israel. That what has really helped there is success stories, right? Role models, where people say, wow, you can make it big, that you can have an enormous success. So, and I think that at Woxsen, what you need to do, for instance, is I would have family day where I would bring in parents and I would have them actually meet with and understand what this concept of a startup is and the fact that entrepreneurship is a legitimate field of endeavor and it's not something that you do if you don't get the government naukri nahi mili, so then you're doing this startup thing. So that's another. And I think that the whole idea of professionalizing the entrepreneurial education is also going to help there because the concept that an entrepreneur is a dropout, also permeates and that is one fear that so what you can convince the parents is at least your son or daughter will have an education that is solid. because the whole concept is entrepreneurs are people who drop out of school and then try to do something because they couldn't find anything else to do or any college to go to. So I think building a formal education around entrepreneurship, evangelizing it with the families. I would actually say that you should not only, this is something we do at a BPO company, that we've had problems with, parents sending single women, their daughters to work, particularly in the middle of the night. So what we do is we actually regularly have family days where we take them, that we show them the security that we have, the gym, the medical facilities, the work environment, and that has gone a long way towards us being able to recruit female talent. So this is a cultural change that will happen, and also role models and success stories will make the difference. But this is not going to happen overnight. Right? I think the culture is changing relative to even when I was in college. When I was in college, the only way you could start a company is if you were in IDB, in dad's business.
Hello, sir. Thank you very much for a very interesting session. I also teach entrepreneurship to MBA students, and for the last 6 years, dealing with students, something very interesting that you said, that entrepreneurship is a legitimate field of endeavor. Now, most of the students who come and they take the course, they work on B plans, they'll continuously tell you that it's okay to work on it right now, but I first want to go get a job, see what the world is, and then go start my own business. And I've been trying to figure out the idea of why not take the plunge now so that you have more, and you can take more risks now early on, as you said, there are no commitments. But that has been a constant tussle with students. I mean, some of them come from backgrounds of entrepreneurship, family business, others are more open there. So what you mentioned about Indian startups and business, how do you go on handling this, telling them, you said cultural change, but what else in your experience helps change that endeavor?
That's a great question. And, and in fairness, I have several MBA students come and tell me I want to be a founder. And I actually tell them sometimes don't do it. Because if you are graduating from school, sometimes the best thing may be to join a startup. And you're maybe too raw and too inexperienced to do a startup from ground zero. Particularly in a traditional business school that has not equipped you from day one and effectively given you 2 years of startup experience during your MBA program. So in that case, you're better off actually learning the ropes at other people's expense and maybe with a few years of experience. So this would be particularly true, let's say, of the youngsters that you get out of college. Unless you find an idea that is powerful and compelling and it needs to be done now, sometimes it's okay to spend a couple of years with somebody else's startup to learn the ropes. But I think the challenge before the folks here at Woxsen is if they can shortcut that or short circuit that by creating an environment where they get that experience so that they can be in founding roles the moment they leave, that will be powerful because you would have gained 5 years. Because what you are losing is energy. You're losing the enthusiasm. But sometimes raw enthusiasm, people will make mistakes. And in fact, that is the biggest contribution an entrepreneurship education can make. We cannot create geniuses. We cannot create Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. But we can help people avoid making stupid mistakes. And if you can help them avoid mistakes and give them the basic toolkit and the skill set, as well as the environment and ecosystem, I think you set people up for success. They still have to do it on their own.
What's the status of entrepreneurship in India right now? How is it going? The demographic in which area, like Bangalore is supposed to be the entrepreneur capital of India right now. So what's the status?
Well, I think Bangalore may be because of all of the technology companies around there, but I see entrepreneurs in all sorts of. I have a student who started a company in Jaipur. It's called Culture Alley, and what he does is uses Skype to do language instruction, yoga instruction, and cooking instruction. So he has women from their homes, stay-at-home moms, teaching Punjabi to my kid in the US. For $15 an hour on Skype. He has 200,000 customers. He's based in Jaipur. Why? Because talent there is cheaper. So the beauty of the cloud and the beauty of the internet now is location doesn't matter. Wherever you can get a critic. And while there is initially Bangalore, Hyderabad, Gurgaon, these are the centers because there's a lot of technical talent. But to the extent that you need talented people, they are in the smaller cities too. So once we are able to build a vibrant ecosystem, it doesn't need to be limited by geography. But initially, the startups clearly are coming around these geographical clusters in the north and the south, where the IT companies initially were started. So a lot of them are in the Gurgaon, Noida area, or the Chennai area, or the Bangalore area, or the Hyderabad area. So these are some of the, and some in Pune. But it will become more geographically spread out as we go. And I'm really excited at the level of activity that I see now. I mean, it's just, it's skyrocketing.
Hi. Probably 5 years down the line, I mean, I'm currently in my education still. 5 years down the line, I would like to get into developing products using technology. So what suggestions, what steps should I be taking towards that? That's something I'd like.
Okay, so he says he wants to do a product startup in 5 years. What steps should he be taking right now? I think that the steps you should be taking right now is really to maximize your learning curve. Learn about, first of all, figure out some area of expertise, some domain, right? So let's say, I was just saying, if it's wireless or enterprise software or whatever it is, healthcare, biotechnology, whatever it is, specialize, right? Learn more and more about, what the definition of a specialist is? They know more and more about less and less until they know everything about nothing, right? So while you don't want to go to that extreme, that's why we do PhDs, right? But what you want to do is to really pick an area where you will educate yourself on your own, and then start networking. Go to conferences, networking events, meet people. So what I find is, and this is something I've done over the years as an academic, is I only work with technology companies. And when a Procter & Gamble comes to me and says, consult for us, I say, I'll consult for you on technology, because I'll help you with social media. So I'm helping brand companies like P&G or General Mills on social media. I don't consult for any other companies. Why? Because after 20 years of doing this, I have pretty much worked with all the technology companies. And then I have to just tell AT&T what Microsoft is doing, and I tell Microsoft what Google is doing, tell Google what Facebook is doing, because I worked with all of these companies. So then you build this expertise. The deeper you go in your domain, the more credibility you'll get. Okay? So that's something that, build that domain expertise, build your network, build your knowledge, and then, eventually get the formal education that you need of finance, of marketing, of, and so on, and then you'll be well on your way.
Hi. Yeah, I'm here. I'm Sai Krishna. I'm an entrepreneur working in food processing actually. Mm-hmm. So for the past 1 year or so, there's one dilemma I've been facing, I've been working on the strategy part of it, and at times it gets frustrating, because not much is happening on the ground, and so how do I deal with the dilemma? This is something that I've seen a lot of my friends also.
Why is not much happening? I want to understand your problem a little bit more.
So yeah, it is all in the mind and it's all on the paper. It's the strategy that I'm working on. But in terms of actual work on the ground happening, say for example, getting some money, that's not happening, right? So this is one dilemma I've been having. So you think you have anything?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, strategy is not the worth the paper is written on, right? It's about, strategy should be 1/10. 9/10 is execution. So something is missing in your execution, right? You can strategize till the cows come home. Once you figure out your strategy, then you got to ask yourself, when you say not much is happening, what is your job as an entrepreneur? It is to make shit happen, right? So then ask yourself, why is it not happening? Am I missing some people? Am I missing some skills? Your job as an entrepreneur is to unblock all the roadblocks that you see and keep pushing forward. Strategy is not going to push you forward. Execution is going to push you forward. So you have to ask, what are the gaps there? If there are certain people who are not doing what they're supposed to do, then you need to replace them. And by the way, if you're not doing what you need to do, you need to replace yourself, right? So at the end of the day, if you say nothing is happening, who's the enemy? Look at yourself in the mirror then. So it's not strategy is important to, it's like I tell my students, strategy is like showing you, this is the road. You have to walk on it. I'm not going to walk the road for you. So if you're saying, well, I know where to go, but I'm not able to take the step, well, you got to figure out how to get your feet, moving. So it's really focus on what are the problems that are getting in the way of making things happen. Because what you're telling me, what I'm hearing from you is, you kind of know what to do, you just can't get around to doing it. Well, then unblock that. Don't rely on strategy, rely on execution.
This is Vishnu here. My question is, in India, if you see most of the engineering graduates are management graduates. The moment they finish their graduation, they want to get into a job. It's mostly software. And they get 2 to 3 years of experience. It's mostly cut and paste job what they do. And if we have to really promote the spirit of entrepreneurs, what kind of skills do they have to get in? And do we have opportunities around?
I teach at a management school, but I'm going to be critical of management schools. Management schools attract risk-averse people because they want job security. And when they come out, they want to do a safe job like McKinsey, consulting, or Unilever, or whatever. I don't think we either recruit people who want to take risks or inculcate in them the attitude of risk-taking. So, by the way, that's why I'm here. That's why I think that what these guys are trying to do at Woxsen is to build an institution that is not creating managers. We have plenty of managers. We don't have entrepreneurs. And the opportunities are limitless. There's no limit to it. India is a huge market of domestic itself. It's just we don't, there are lots of good management schools. And, there's one right here, ISB, I've taught there. Great management school. But a management school that will have an entrepreneurship program, it will always be an afterthought. I'll tell you an Aesop's fable to prove this point. So there was a shepherd, and he was grazing his sheep, and he had this big dog. And the dog sees a rabbit run across the field. So the dog gives chase, and he chases the rabbit. It's a long chase, but the rabbit gets away. So the dog comes back dejected. So the shepherd asks him, he says, "You have this big dog, How did you let this little rabbit get away?" He said, "There's a little difference. I was running for my lunch, he was running for his life." All right? So for management schools, the entrepreneurship is running for their lunch. These guys are running for their life. So that's the difference. We need institutions that are really their central focus. And this is something that, a challenge that I throw out to the folks at Woxsen is you have to recruit a particular kind of breed. Somewhere in your evaluation criteria has to be kind of, is this person, I think only 5% of the world is made out to be entrepreneurs. 100% want to be, but only 5% are cut out to be. So that has to be part of the screening criteria. And then the education, the whole system. You have to create a mindset and a culture and a DNA. So the DNA of the institution is to create babus. You're not going to be able to create entrepreneurs. Now, I'm not criticizing this. I think we need managers. We need lots of managers. But we need a small set of, for every 10 managers, there are 9 people who hold up the wall, there's 1 person who builds the wall. We need 9 people to hold up the wall, but we need that one to build the wall. And that's a different person.
With regards to innovation, how should I kickstart? And should I
How should you get started?
Yes. And should I be technologically proficient? Because most of the company founders today, like Google, Microsoft, they are all technologically very sound. And they know how to run a technological company, and they know the pitfalls. And should I be technologically proficient or just knowing the managerial aspects of the company? And the third thing is predicting rationally, the right prediction in the few years to come. This is going to be happen because the world is surrounded by many uncertainties and dynamics, and how should I address those? And execution traps, and how should I be ahead of time in planning and.
In terms of how you should start with innovation, look around, be observant. Ask yourself, what are the problems that you feel as a consumer in your life? Talk to people, figure out what are some of the pain points or issues that you see with services and products around you. Also, by the way, you have the opportunity in India to be able to look around at what has been done in Western Europe and the US and adapt it. Amazon became Flipkart, and eBay became Bazi.com, and Monster became Naukri.com, and Match.com became Shadi.com, and so on. So there are always these adaptations of ideas that have been tried elsewhere, but you can adapt them to the Indian context. So inform yourself, right? Look around and always be thinking and asking and what the problems are. And then the next thing you had asked is, do you need to be technologically proficient? Not necessarily. Some of the founders I know, people who've done great things, are actually not technology experts. It helps. It helps to know your technology, but you don't have to be the one that builds the product. You have to be the one that builds the company. So you have to be able to bring, now what you do need is to bring on board a person who's very technically talented. So the founder can either be the technology founder or they can be the business founder. It doesn't matter. You just need to know enough to not, you know what I tell people, you need to know enough technology to fool a layman or not to get fooled by an expert. That's how much you need to know. But no, absolutely not. It's just, I don't take my message to mean that now I got to go learn C++ and Visual Basic and so on, otherwise or Python or whatever else. And no, you need to actually find a customer problem worth solving. Prediction, don't worry about prediction. Adapt, be agile. Because you'll always make a bet about what you think is coming next. But as long as you keep adjusting and be agile, it doesn't matter what the future ends up. You will be able to adapt. You don't need to predict 3 years out. If I knew what was 3 years out, I wouldn't be here. I had an island in Bahamas, right? So we don't know where the future is going to be. But in a startup, you don't predict the future. You make the future. And that's you create the future. So have that confidence and then move forward. Okay, we're going to take 2 more questions. Okay, so you, and that's that.
Just a thought, not a question. In India, you're talking about the ecosystem of entrepreneurs. In India, an entrepreneur, if he fails, is usually seen as a crime. I'm sure. I started off as an early entrepreneur. On the basis of a very failure, I become a good businessman. So I feel I'm a very lucky few.
Yeah, failure builds character. Success is a lousy teacher. Because sometimes you ascribe success to yourself and failure to other people. Right? But failure, you have to ascribe to yourself. You know why you failed. You never know why you succeeded. So, and I think that is changing. By the way, that is evolving, that is changing. And the part of the reason why failure was not an option in India when I was in college 25 years ago was because opportunities were very few. If you failed, you didn't have food to eat. But today you fail as an entrepreneur, you can still do okay. And that's why I say at least you have a formal education to fall back on. So it's okay. We have the luxury of taking risks that we could not take 20 years ago. And we also have other people's money to take risks on. Right? So absolutely, I think it's a much better environment than we had before.
Jayaprakash, I'm a corporate trainer on Green Living and then founder of a voluntary organization called I Go Green Foundation. In couple of slides you were mentioning about India not going for products, Indian entrepreneurs, even the big people also. So I got 2 thoughts in mind now, maybe you can add up in this audience, find a way, a possibility for India. One is if you see a +2 and academic education schools, you have B.Ed and M.Ed, the teachers are trained to educate. But if you go to engineering colleges and technical institutions, an M.Tech and Ph.D. is teaching without a teaching education. He doesn't have a knowledge of how to teach actually. So the technical educators stream should come into the course somewhere in the universities, because the practical connections are coming when you go to M.Tech and somewhere your industries are coming and teaching, pulling them to industry. But that's only helping them to hardly survive on some services, one thing. Maybe this is one clear gap coming out. Except for their own talent of studying engineering, they are coming out. If you have a thoroughly trained technical educator, then you get it. Second is, of course, the corruption. Most of the people who really strive and get their product out are bailed out because corruption wins over competition. Unless you are a big shot, like a very, very exceptionally talented fellow. So these 2 are the killers in India for product.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.